Next thing we're going to talk about, websites. If you're going to sell your work, you want to sell your work, you need a good website. I mentioned this earlier. A lot of photographers that are big on YouTube and other social media sources don't have very good websites. And I guess it's just not a priority to them. They don't feel like they want to sell their work. I don't understand that mind frame. You need multiple sources of income to make it really work, and having a website, a good website, is a must. So don't try to print your own stuff at home to sell. People do it. It's fine if you're going to just do up to 11 by 14s or whatever, but I don't even bother, because I just don't bother. I have a decent home printer, but it's pointless for me. So find a good print lab, a professional print lab, not Walmart or Costco or somebody like that, but go find a good professional print lab and talk to them about prices and about printing your work. If you've not printed your work, it's fun to have your work printed and see it hanging on a wall. So even if you just print your work and hang it on your own wall, do it. It's so cool to see your own photographs hanging up. Get a relationship with a local print lab and find somebody that can do high quality stuff. If you want to sell canvases, make sure they can do high quality canvases. Spend the money and have them make various pieces for you that you can see their quality. One thing I would say to steer away from, it's just me, most photographers do it and love it, but I am not a fan. Most of it's because of my years and years of being in the photo printing industry. But don't go with the dye sublimation process. It's nothing but problematic. I've had so many problems with the ones I've had made. They're not consistent is the biggest problem. Art needs to be consistent. A painter, somebody is a painter, and they paint this piece, and they've got the colors everything how they want it, and then they take it and they take a photograph of it, and then they want to make copies of that photograph to sell prints of their painting. They really struggle to get the color matched right in their prints to match the actual painting. They want consistency. Painters are extremely nitpicky when it comes to that stuff. You need to be that way too as a photographer. You're painting with light. So don't just settle for stuff that's okay. Your work needs to look perfect every time for your clients. And dye sublimation is really problematic. Now, I know there's a lot of guys that are going to give me hate over this because they love dye sub and they do it all the time, and they found people that do it just fine for them and everything. More power to you, man. But I went the rounds with local places doing it. I went the rounds with people in California doing it. I had Bay Photo. I had all sorts of people doing it. The best ones I found was Reed Art and Imaging in Colorado, and they just shut down after 30 years. They announced they were closing their doors just a couple weeks ago, and I think they're gone. They're done. And they were the best I could find, and even they said it's not consistent. It's not the best work they would produce. So there's my little spiel about dye sub. The point to this is get your work printed by somebody else, or if you're going to do it yourself, fine, but you're not going to be able to do high-end, high-quality stuff that is sellable, that people are really going to want to buy and hang on their walls, big prints. You're not going to be able to do that yourself unless you have a lot of money and a lot of room and can and spend a lot of time figuring it out, unless you have the knowledge already beforehand. So build a rapport with a print lab and have them print your work for you. The next thing, I'm going to get more hate for this. But the print-on-demand services like Fine Art America, SmugMug, and some of the others out there, they're crap. They're just crap. If you're going to be a professional and you want to sell art, then sell art. Fine Art America stuff, I know a lot of people use it. If you want to start that route and then move up, but I found it easiest. I fiddled with them a little bit. I found it easiest to just build my own website and just plow through it that way. The reason being is you want quality. You don't have any quality control with Fine Art America. They're going to print it, they're going to ship it to your client, and you have you never saw the print, you have no quality control over it. I have all my stuff printed locally right here in Salt Lake from a local pro lab that I hope to buy in 5 or 6 years when they retire, and I'll retire for my day job and do that, because then I'll have a place to print my own stuff. But I have them print my stuff, I go pick it up and I inspect it. They have never made anything bad for me, ever. That's the first step in building a website, is getting your work, finding somebody to print your work. Then building a website is a whole nother thing. I started out with WordPress. I had my daughter help me build it because she knew some WordPress stuff. It worked fine, but I found it extremely top heavy. It was very difficult to work through, to build a site that was a retail site, a site that was I could sell stuff on. It took a lot of work to just upkeep it, and it was sometimes monthly or quarterly or yearly fees. Every time I needed to renew a theme, it would cost me money on WordPress because it uses WooCommerce. All the stuff, I felt like I was getting nickel to dime to death on it. I looked at other options like Shopify and some of those platforms. They're actually pretty decent. What's the one? Squarespace, I think. Peter Lick's website is done through Squarespace. So is Rodney Lowe Jr.'s. Those are options, but you need to understand the amount of work involved in just getting it together and the expense. I ended up going with Wide Range Galleries. Jack Brower is a web developer and coder and photographer out of Colorado. He apparently built his own website, and people liked it. They started asking him to make one for them, and it just kind of caught on, and a lot of people use him now. It was expensive. It was, I think, $4,000 to get for him to design and get my website up, and then I had to load all the photographs in it and customize it. So it was a lot of work, but it was so worth it. His platform is so easy to use. It's so user-friendly. It doesn't take a lot of work to stick a photograph on it, to update your website with new photographs and stuff. So it was the best decision I made. It didn't have all the options I wanted, but I had to make a compromise. It was either lots of options that were going to take me hours and hours and hours to do, and a lot of just every time I wanted to put a photograph on there, a lot of work, or a little bit easier of a system, and I went with the easier system. So Jack's website also is extremely SEO friendly. If you don't know what SEO is, it's search engine optimization, and if you want people to find your website, you need to learn about SEO. It's the only way people are going to find you, and because the search engines, they scroll your website, they're looking for stuff, and you've got to have text on there that is relevant, that the search engines are going to be able to find and be able to search you and use you. So you've got to really research search engine optimization, SEO, if you're going to have a website and you want it to be successful. You can't just bring up a website and then sit back and go, why aren't people coming to it? It takes a lot of work, a lot of effort to get your website up to speed with SEO. One of the tricks I'll tell you is blog posts. You need to have a blog post connected to your website. It can't be a separate blog. on a separate page. Like if you've got a WordPress blog site already, you're going to want to scrap it, and you're going to want to have your blog post on your physical website, and then do regular blog posts about not just about your work, but about photography, about places you go, things you do that is relevant to your photography in some way, shape, or form. Because that stuff is really important for the search engines to see you and rank you higher and higher in the search results. So there's a little trick about how to get known on the internet. I learned this from Aaron Reed. It was a whole lot more than that. I'm still trying to digest everything he taught me. And once I started putting what he taught me into use, my search engine results really started increasing. I'm now right at the top of, if not the top, of the searches for nature photographers in Utah. Landscape nature photography in Utah, art, art photography. I'm right at the top because of that, because of what I learned from Aaron. So if you don't know who Aaron Reed is, Google him, check him out. His work is fantastic, and he is the king of web sales. So that's what I have to say about art shows and websites and selling your work online. It needs to be a combination of both. If you're going to do art shows, you need to have a good website, and if you're going to want to sell your work online with the website, you really need to get out there physically and do some art shows. They kind of go hand in hand. Aaron Reed only did art shows locally in Washington, more for fun than anything, and it wasn't his main source of income, and he ended up just stopping doing them because he just didn't need to do them, and it kind of got to be a pain for him. I'm kind of to that point. It's nice to get out and meet people. It's fun to do a live show and talk to clients and make sales there in the field, but it's really a pain and takes a lot of time to get ready for them and expense. And I've got so much expense tied up into my actual art show stuff that if I cashed it all out, I could buy a nice new camera. But also the room it takes up. The whole back of my garage is full of that stuff, of the displays and art, and a big chunk of a room in my basement is full of it, and it just is a lot of space that's gonna just take up in your homes. You really need to have various streams of income to make a go at it when it comes to making a living as a nature and landscape photographer. In next week's episode, I'm going to give you some ideas for those various streams of income and how I feel about various things like workshops and merchandise and social media. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for next week's episode.